Closing the eyes, quieting the mind, feeling the sit bones into the ground, feel the crown making its way up towards the sky. Begin to breathe deeply through your nose into your belly, letting the belly rise away from the spine on the inhale breath, letting the belly fall back down towards the spine on the exhale. Inhale, belly rising. Exhale, belly falling. Inhale, belly rising. Exhale, belly falling. Softening the shoulders, lengthening the spine. Pull the shoulders back, open the chest. Feel the length in the spine from the sit bones to the crown. Pull the chin back. Inhaling in 4 sniffs through the nose. Hold the breath at the top. Gently engage root lock, pulling the base of the spine, the perineum up towards the crown. Exhale, release the breath out through the mouth. Hold the breath at the bottom. Pull the belly in towards the spine, pull the perineum up. Inhale, 4 sniffs through the nose. Hold at the top, shoulders back, chest wide, chin pulled back. Engage root lock, pull up towards the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale, 4 sniffs. Hold at the top, chin lock, root lock, pull in and up towards the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. Hold at the bottom for a moment, feel the emptiness. Inhale, 4 strokes. Filling that water bottle from the bottom to the top in 4 strokes, holding, engaging, pulling gently up towards the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold, chin lock, root lock, gently pull up, pull up, pull up. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Hold at the top. Gently engage, pull up through the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. Empty, empty, empty. Couple more rounds. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold at the top, shoulders back, chin back, crown up, engage root lock, pull up towards the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. Hold at the bottom, go inward. One more time, inhale, 4 strokes. Hold, chin lock, root lock, pull in and up towards the crown, in and up, in and up, in and up. Exhale, soften. And feel yourself letting go, keeping the spine elongated. Relax the shoulders some more. Relax the thighs. Relax the face. Feel yourself just going inward, letting go, softening, allowing, letting go. The breath just becomes soft and steady. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. I am breathing in. And breathing out. And begin to just focus on the exhale breath, the emptying of the breath. The inhaling, taking care of itself, the exhaling, feeling a sense of letting go, releasing, emptying. Letting go, releasing, emptying. Keep the spine elongated. Shoulders back, chest, throat, heart, third eye open. Letting go. Letting go. Letting go. Softening. Allowing. Letting everything come. Letting it go on that exhale. Sensation comes. Let it go on the exhale. Thought comes. Let it go on the exhale. And take a deep inhale. Exhale. Take another deep inhale. Hold, chin lock, root lock, pulling it up. Exhale, let it go. And slowly opening your eyes. And hi there. Nice to see everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to see everybody. I'm going to put you on gallery view for a moment. Hey, everybody. So we've got a new adventure to kind of go into now. We spent, first we spent about a month or so with Michael Singer and The Untethered Soul, which is a great book. And then we went right into another really amazing teacher, Pema Chodron, and When Things Fall Apart. And I really found that book, I'm going to go back to that book again and again, and like I have done with The Untethered Soul. But it's just those three teachings that Pema gave us, really the breath, the awareness of the out breath, the Tonglen meditation of breathing in whatever is disturbing and releasing out loving kindness. And then the third is to see everything as our teacher. Everything is enlightened energy. Those three teachings are really amazing. And we're going to carry what we've learned and what we've gained from the last couple of months, both in our study and practice, but also in our life, right? The world is teaching us right now, if we're willing to listen, teaching us about how to be in uncertain times, how to find our sense of security, our sense of okayness that is distinct from external circumstance, right? This is like if we're always waiting for something to be just right, to be okay, well, I think we're learning that's not a good plan, right? That plan is not going to work so well. It's kind of, again, I've been using the surfing analogy a lot right now, and I really like it. I think it's, the more I kind of play with it, the more it's a simple analogy, pretty easy for people to kind of get their heads around, and at the same time, really pretty apropos for kind of what life is like. It's sort of, where we can just sit there, out there on the wave, and just let the waves come and go. And you're out there on the ocean, and it's beautiful, and you don't need to do anything, right? Or you can decide, hey, I want to try to catch this wave. And then we usually work pretty hard to try to catch the wave. You're like swimming pretty hard. And sometimes we catch it, and we get up on it, and we ride it. And then sometimes it passes out underneath us, and we still worked really hard. Often we get up on it, and then we wipe out. That's my experience, right? So and then we're tumbling around and all this sort of stuff. And that is really kind of what life is like in a way, right? We can kind of just hang out and be, or we can try to play and explore, but there's no kind of guarantee, right? And if we can just be okay in any of those situations, then we can enjoy either way. We can enjoy letting the waves rise and fall, or we can enjoy trying to catch the wave and working really hard. We can even recognize that tumbling and falling and getting bounced against the board and the sand and everything in our shorts and bathing suit, that's all part of it, right? That's all part of the experience. It's all part of the divine unfolding. And but what most of us kind of do a lot of the time is we keep trying to grasp for some kind of security, and this is what kind of causes us a lot of suffering, because again, the world keeps changing, the waves keep changing, the weather keeps changing, and so anyways, I just like that analogy, and it's something we might come back to as we explore this next teaching and this next teacher that comes from a very different perspective. This is like this first really totally spiritual perspective, right? Although as I've started to read the book, and I haven't read this book before, I've read parts of it before, but I haven't read the whole book before, but you can see how she starts referring to the spiritual as well, that what we're seeking is some sort of transcendence, right? Well, transcendence is a spiritual term, and so when we explore what she's coming from as a therapist and a psychologist, and from that perspective, they're all just different. It's like looking at the same thing from another facet. It's like looking at a diamond from another facet, right? From another side of it, and it can help us when we take some of those other facets that we've used from our yoga practice and our meditation practice, and reading and exploring Pema and exploring Michael Singer and exploring Amrita Desai. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years now, and you just sort of take all that stuff and then you add this other perspective to it, and you see where that can take you. Can it take you a little deeper, right? And the other reason I like doing this is, again, remember my goals that I kind of laid out a few months ago, or over the last couple of years, I've been developing that whole kind of thing about what do I want, right? And I want peace and connection and aliveness, right? And so this realm really is going to address all three of those: peace, connection, and aliveness, right? And aliveness often has to do with what she would say, what Esther Perel, which we're going to explore this book, would say is kind of erotic energy that sort of scares us, or where we feel uncertain, or we feel a sense of excitement or creativity, right? This is where that aliveness comes in. So we want peace and we want connection. Remember when I started this journey, I just sort of focused on those two. I was like, okay, I know I want to feel peaceful, which I define as kind of an okayness feeling. I feel okay regardless of what's happening, right? Then I want connection, right? Which is, I want to feel like I'm connected to something greater than myself. I want to feel like I'm having a genuine connection with other people. I want to have an authentic connection with nature. I want to feel like I'm in harmony with the cycles of the seasons and the tides and that kinds of stuff. So I want to feel that sense of connection. But then I kind of, as I explored that, I realized there's something missing here. This isn't quite complete. And that's where I got to aliveness is the word I'm calling it. But it could be vitality, it could be erotic energy, it could be creativity. It's some sense of growth, of adventure, of possibility, right? And so what I like about what we're about to explore over the next month is when we talk about relationship, and we talk about intimacy and we talk about erotic energy, this stuff tends to bring it all up. It's like, okay, we have all of these things here now. We have all of our desires tend to get focused into our relationships, right? Not all the time. We have other desires that are outside of our relationships. Desire, as I said, to connect more deeply to nature, to connect to art, to create art. These are things that don't necessarily involve other people, but a lot of our stuff involves other people for most of us. So this is something when we kind of start to get at it from this angle, like let's go in from this door, right? Rather than come from the top down, which is kind of what the spiritual perspective does. I'm going to just change my view here again because we're actually recording this live right now on YouTube as well. So you can go back and check this out on YouTube anytime after this. And so just changing my perspective here a little bit. But usually from a spiritual perspective, we're kind of coming from a top-down solution model, which is if I can just get myself okay, if I can get myself balanced and peaceful, then it's kind of like everything else will work out all right, or it won't work out all right. I will be okay with whatever works out. And that is a really good path. I mean, that's the path that's been around for thousands of years and on different levels. But another path is sort of from the bottom up, which is let me use everything that's going on in my life as an opportunity to get free. And where a lot of this stuff shows up is, again, in our relationships. And so how can I use my relationships as opportunities, as enlightened energy? I've attracted them in a way, right? We're making choices all the time which bring people into our lives. So can I trust my own intuitive wisdom that if I've brought this person into my life, that they are now my teacher, right? Whoever it is, my child, my partner, my parents, my siblings, we've on some level, from the Hindu perspective, they say we choose our parents, right? So we've chosen everybody to be with. So now what do I want to do with that? And where we can really look at that again is in the quality of our relationships, the idiosyncrasies of our relationships, the things that bring us joy, the things that frustrate us. Those are often usually key teachers right there. And so this is just another perspective and another way in. And so I'm looking forward to this journey, and I do so with a little bit of trepidation because it's a different perspective, one which I'm less nimble in some way. I'm learning too. I'm on this learning curve with you. You guys have been with me for a while, know that authentic relationships and genuine connection is something that I'm very interested in and committed to, but I've mostly come at it from a sort of that top-down thing, right? Like let's come at it from a sort of spiritual perspective. Coming at it from a more psychological perspective is something that I'm less familiar with, but really excited about exploring more deeply and seeing how we can use the practices, just like the practice that we just did, right? This little breathing practice, as a way of enhancing, understanding, making ourselves more open, more available to deeper experiences, more meaningful experiences, more intimate experiences, more vulnerable experiences, more experiences that bring us joy, right? So we can start to build like that diamond, build the facets of the diamond, and then we have that kind of heart at the center. Okay. Anybody want to say anything before we get started? Add anything? So feel free as well, to email me with any thoughts and any ideas about where this is going. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read here. I'm going to start off with this a bit in the introduction that just gives a sense of who Esther Perel is, and also what her intentions are for this journey that we're about to go on. So I'm just going to read a little bit from that, and then we can talk about it a little bit, and then maybe we'll get into the first chapters a little bit, or we'll just see kind of what unfolds over the next few minutes here. So this is from the introduction to Mating in Captivity. I've transferred my personal experience to my professional work as a clinician, teacher, and consultant, working in cross-cultural psychology. Having focused on cultural transition, I've specifically worked with 3 populations: refugee families, international families, and intercultural couples. For intercultural couples, the cultural shifts do not stem from a geographic move, but instead take place in their own living rooms. What really piqued my interest was how this merging of cultures influenced gender relations and child-rearing practices. I pondered the many meanings of marriage and how its role and its place in the larger family system varies in different national contexts. It is a private act of 2 individuals, or is it a private act of 2 individuals or a communal affair between 2 families? In my sessions with couples, I try to discern the cultural nuances behind the discussion of commitment, intimacy, pleasure, orgasm, and the body. Love may be universal, but its constructions in each culture are defined both literally and figuratively in different languages. I was particularly sensitive to the conversations about child and adolescent sexuality because it is in messages to children that societies most reveal their values, goals, incentives, and prohibitions. So we're going to explore this at some point because I think this is super important to how our adult relationships form. Is really they're so incredibly influenced by the messages that we were sent as youngsters and adolescents about how we're supposed to fit in and how we're supposed to feel about ourselves intimately, sexually, how we're supposed to feel about our body. All this stuff really plays, as I would say, wreaks havoc, but it certainly plays very strong roles in what comes next as we enter into adulthood. One of my most formative personal experiences underlying this book may seem circuitous, but I must reveal it to you, as it sheds a light on the deeper motivations that fuel my passion. My parents were survivors of Nazi concentration camps. For a number of years, they stood face to face with death every day. My mother and father were the sole survivors of their respective families. They came out of this experience wanting to charge at life with a vengeance and to make the most of each day. They both felt that they had been granted a unique gift, living life again. Hang on a second. Sorry. My parents were unusual, I think. They didn't just want to survive, they wanted to revive. They possessed a thirst for life, thrived on exuberant experiences, and loved to have a good time. They cultivated pleasure. I know absolutely nothing about their sexual life, except that they had 2 children, my brother and me. But by the way they lived, I sensed that they had a deep understanding of eroticism. Though I doubt that they ever used this word, they embodied it in its mystical meaning as a quality of aliveness, a pathway to freedom. So I want to stop right there for a second. So I really like this because what she just used was this idea of eroticism. You'll see here as being a mystical meaning and a quality of aliveness, a pathway to freedom, right? So we're talking about, remember we talked about aliveness earlier, right? So how we understand our erotic self, right, is one avenue of exploring aliveness, one avenue of exploring our vitality. So if we want aliveness, right, in our life, then this is one place in which we can explore and in which to manifest, right? But we have to get over some of our hangups around eroticism, and so we're going to have to explore that to some extent. Um, Let me just finish this up. Though I doubt that they ever use that word in Passive Freedom, not just the narrow definition of sex that modernity has assigned to it. It is expanded understanding that I bring to bear. It is this expanded understanding that I bring to bear on my discussion of eroticism in this book. So what she's saying is it's way bigger than just sex. And I believe that's true. Just like intimacy is way bigger than just sex, right? So when we talk about our erotic life or our intimate life, we tend to sort of think, oh, this is just about our sexuality or having sex, when it can be way bigger than that, way more transcendent. And this is what she's alluding to right here, that there's a lot more to explore if we give ourselves permission, give ourselves room. And you'll notice that when we say things, when we use the words intimacy or eroticism, it actually tends to shut things down. It shuts people down. If you say, oh, I'm having an intimate relationship with someone, immediately they start connotating sexuality or sex. And then if you're not married to that person or whatever, you're now in taboo land, right? You're now in ostracization land. You're about to be kicked out of the community, So you can see, we'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, more about this as we go, how our ideas that have been given to us actually cut us off from the transcendent opportunity. The divine opportunity that is before us, and so because we vilify it in some way, shape, or form. Every day I'm going to just continue here a little bit longer. Every day in my work, I am confronted with the detailed realities that hide behind statistics. I see people who are such good friends they cannot sustain being lovers. I see lovers who hold so tenaciously to the idea that sex must be spontaneous that they never have it at all. I see couples who view seduction as too much work, something they shouldn't have to do now that they're committed. I see others who believe that intimacy means knowing everything about each other. They abdicate any sense of separateness, then are left wondering where the mystery has gone. I see wives who would rather carry the label low sexual desire for the rest of their lives than suffer explaining to their husbands that foreplay needs to be more than a prelude to the real thing. I see people so desperate to beat back a feeling of deadness in their partnerships that they're willing to risk everything for a few moments of forbidden excitement with someone else. I see couples whose sex lives are rekindled by an affair, and others for whom an affair effectively ends what little connection remained. I see older men who feel betrayed by their newly unresponsive penises, who rush for Viagra to soften the anxiety of hard facts. I see wives made uncomfortable by the sudden challenge to their own passivity. I see new parents whose erotic energy has been sapped by caring for an infant so consumed by their child that they don't remember to close the bedroom door once in a while. I see the man who looks at porn online not because he doesn't find his wife attractive, but because her lack of enthusiasm leaves him feeling that there's something wrong with him for wanting sex. I see people so ashamed of their sexuality that they spare the one they love the ordeal. I see people who know they are loved, but who long to be desired. They all come to me because they yearn for erotic vitality. Sometimes they come sheepishly. Sometimes they arrive desperate, dejected, enraged. They don't just miss sex the act. They miss the feeling of connection, playfulness, and renewal that sex allowed them. I invite you to join me in my conversations with these questers as we work towards opening up and coming a step closer to transcendence. For those who aspire to accelerate their heartbeat periodically, I give them the score. Excitement is interwoven with uncertainty and with our willingness to embrace the unknown rather than to shield ourselves from it. But this very tension leaves us feeling vulnerable. I caution my patients there is no such thing as safe sex. I should point out, however, that not all lovers seek passion, or even at one time basked in it. Some relationships originate in feelings of warmth, tenderness, and nurturance, and the partners choose to remain in these calmer waters. They prefer a love that is built on patience more than on passion. To them, finding serenity in a lasting bond is what counts. There is no one way, and there is no right way. Mating in Captivity aspires to engage you in an honest, enlightened, and provocative discussion. It encourages you to question yourself, to speak the unspoken, and to be unafraid to challenge sexual and emotional correctness. By flinging the doors open on erotic life and domesticity, I invite you to put the X back in sex. So that's the introduction. Does anybody want to share how they're feeling about that introduction, or what may have kind of come up for them just in what I'm sharing? Like, one of the things I need to know, and you can share it here or you can share it with me individually, is this something not just of interest, but of willingness to go into? Is it, this is not going to really work, this inquiry, if it's just a kind of total abstraction. If this is like, okay, I'm just going to listen to what Greg thinks is interesting and, be somewhat entertained by his antics. That's probably not going to get us very far in terms of our spiritual growth. So I think one of the things is just, as you hear where Esther wants to take us, right, and where she's going, is that something that you say, you don't have to feel like full-fledged enthusiasm, like, oh yeah, please take me there. It's more just like, oh no, does this feel like something worthwhile? And often something worthwhile has an edge to it. It has a sort of like, it's like public speaking, right? When we're, most people, have some fear of public speaking, but they do it because they know that there's some worthwhile outcome. They have something that's they want to share or they want to communicate, and so they get up there and they do it. And so this thing should feel kind of like that. Like, do we want to go into, like, you can already see. I mean, she says the word sex quite a few times, and I think it's going to come up some more. Like, are we willing to kind of go into these places that feel a little uncomfortable for us because there's a possibility of growth? And it doesn't have to be, it's not an endorsement. We're not endorsing how she looks at the world. What we're just saying is, oh, this is a worthwhile perspective in which we can take some of our other tools that we've learned and combine them with this in such a way that we can start to grow and heal and move again towards peace, connection, and aliveness. So I open the floor to whoever would like to share, if anybody would like to share. Barbara wants to share.
Well, in listening to the introduction there, it occurred to me that it's very different from how I was brought up. And I don't know that I was actually taught anything about sex or intimacy by my parents. In fact, I'm sure I wasn't. But you had this sort of cultural thing that you were expected to follow, or you thought you were expected to follow. So this is, I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable to me, because it's opening up an opportunity to look at things differently, to weigh the the pros and cons, and perhaps understand what makes me tick, what makes other people tick, and a different way of being, of more freeing. I think I think I told you um, that uh, I have, or I had a couple of friends because my friend Larry just passed away at the age of 89. Um, he and his wife were nudists, and everybody thought, oh, it's about sex. It's about sex. It wasn't about sex at all. It was about freedom and opening themselves up and being that way with other people too, if those people chose to do that with them. So I understand that this is a little bit of a different way of thinking, but I think it's opening up opportunities and thoughts and just a different way of being.
Yeah, I agree. I like the when she came out. Can everybody hear? I
Yeah.
don't know. I find that intimacy, everyone thinks sex is equals intimacy and love, and it's funny. I found that friends of mine, there's quite a few that are very uncomfortable discussing, just as girlfriends, or as intimacy in general does not mean sex. And I think it's a very beautiful thing to be intimate with someone, and it could be intimate even with the same sex, your best girlfriend or a guy friend. It doesn't, intimacy is so, it's not easy to achieve if you're not opening yourself up. But I mean, I think this is a great path. I think we can all learn from it, because I too, my parents, we were very free and relaxed, growing up as a family. Everything, what we weren't uptight about our bodies. I've learned that from today. I find very comfortable in my own skin, but I do find it makes other people uncomfortable in my circle of friends, because they don't get that. And I'm not saying I want to run off, hang out naked with everybody outside, but I do understand that. I don't shunt it. And I think it's really beautiful if and I think that's what's neat about our little circle here, is that we are willing to open up for discussion and be comfortable and not judge anybody. Um, so I think it's kind of neat. It's coming at a really cool time.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I want to just comment on that, and then Clarice, maybe you can add something. What you just said about the non-judgmentalism is going to be so key. So we practice this, right, in our yoga practice about cultivating the Vijnana Maya Kosha. This is where these paths meet. To do this kind of work, especially in a group setting like this, it takes a lot of non-judgmental practice, because somebody could even say things like what you just shared, like um, going out and being naked in a group together, right? That's a very nice comment to make. It could be very triggering to somebody, right? And so I'm just saying that if we're gonna go on this journey together, which I hope we will, then we have to understand that things are going to come up. We are going to get triggered. It's just inevitable. This is some of the deepest stuff that we deal with, and so being willing to say, okay, if I come up, I can just maybe be quiet. You don't have to obviously say anything, but I can just be with what's coming up and know that all of this is coming up from a place of love and compassion. Like I wouldn't do any of this if it's not to intentionally cause any pain, but just knowing that pain will come into the situation, right? We will feel some experience, or we will have some experience come up for us, or memory come up for us, and so how can we just really compassionately be with that? This is where that ahimsa practice, that loving kindness practice, that non-judgmental awareness, this is where the rubber meets the road, is in these types of explorations. And we do it together. Why do we do this? Is we do it for healing. We do it for a sense of connection. We do it to get to peace. We do it to get to a sense of how can I open myself up to more aliveness, to more vitality. We don't go through the pain just for the experience of the pain or the disturbance. We go through it so that we can heal, we can mend, we can realize there are other people out here who understand. So we're not feeling quite so isolated, alone. I mean, so many people suffer from a sense of aloneness, right? Or loneliness, I should say. Loneliness is not really, loneliness is fine, but a sense of loneliness is really a kind of sense of nobody, I'm not connecting, right, very deeply. And so, anyways, I just wanted to add that comment to what you said, because as we have these conversations, just know that things will pop up in them, and how can we use them as chances to grow and to unfold. And Clarice, what did you want to share with the group?
Say that, you know, all these teachings remind me that it's conditioning that got me to where I am. And if I didn't participate in these things and open my mind to the fact that, you know, it was how historically my families for generations passed these messages on to me, I always felt very defective, and I didn't know what to do with feeling so defective, because though based on the information that I was taught, the relationships weren't working out, and I didn't have any other tools or any other ability to change it, because I wasn't taught any other way. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful to have this opportunity to, you know, to get an opportunity to change and just to continue to realize that I'm fine. It's just that my brain has been given information that doesn't serve me all the time. And I'd like to have, you know, a more open brain that's probably the brain that, you know, God intended for me to have. Anyway, that's enough.
Yeah.
No, no, that's awesome, Clarice. That's what I was saying. You're in a beautiful setting, by the way. But I find this discussion with all of us is good, because I can have a larger open mind, and I'm so welcome to take in more than I've been shown so far. And I think you're, as saying, we need to be more open-minded and not so closed-minded, and not because we've been fed that or we've been taught that. So that's terrific. I like that.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything? Susan wants to say something. Susan, can you turn your mic on, Susan, please? Yeah, we can't hear you at the moment. You gotta down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you should be able to turn your microphone on. Left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner.
I got it. I think.
Yeah,
Yes, you did.
you got it.
You know, I like where you were going with this, Greg, in terms of we don't associate eroticism with spirituality, particularly.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like from that introduction, she's trying to bring that together with our practice, with understanding that we, to the degree that we bring that quality to the whole idea,
Yeah.
it starts to take on meaning, and it becomes more substantial and not just connected with a person or a situation. Or I look forward to hearing what you have to say about that, because that really interests me.
Thank you. Yeah, there's some really interesting teachings out there about kind of eroticism and transcendence and the divine. But I also wanted to ask you, you must, I would imagine, play with this idea or explore this idea within as being an artist, right? And I would think like when I look at some of the great art out there, even that's not explicitly erotic, right? It doesn't have to be sexual, but it has that erotic energy, you know, it has that creativity energy. It has this kind of something is trying to manifest energy. You know, I think like when you see some incredible art that you just kind of, it steps out at you, you know, in a way which invokes that same erotic energy. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I think, and I think that's an exciting thing to explore. That just how does creativity tap into eroticism and slash spirituality. They're so connected, and to the degree that we let those things loose, there's vitality up here. She talked about vitality a lot. I thought, you know, that's something that we all are afraid of losing, and of, you know, whether it's in a relationship or in our work or whatever we do, there's this always this danger of losing the vitality. And it feels like if we were a little more grounded in where that comes from, it wouldn't be so fleeting.
Right. Well, if we felt more comfortable around that energy, right? So you know, when you think of some, again, we can kind of come up with some examples of that creative artist energy, or that creative energy is often driven by some of that same erotic energy. They're very similarly related, right? And so this sense of creativity, this sense of sensuality, this sense of passion, this sense of manifestation, something, these are all sense of deep connection, intimacy. These are all connected things in which we often, again, sort of tend to push aside, or sublimate, or judge negatively, as Clarice was sort of saying. We kind of say, well, that's not going to fit in some way. And you know, I think I've shared with you guys one of my dark heroes is Paul Gauguin, the painter, you know, the artist. He was actually a sculptor as well. And why I call him a dark hero is because he was kind of a social disaster, from a social standpoint. He was pretty upsetting from that standpoint. Left his family, you know, when he was in his 40s, and moved to Paris, and then eventually ended up in Tahiti. And so basically he abandons his family, which most of us could probably say, well, that's not so good, you know. And yet, if you look at his art and you spend time with his art, which I have at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, it is, I mean, for me, it's just unbelievable. It's just like, he's really one of the great masters. So he is somebody who, one could say, and this is what scares us, kind of went full tilt into eroticism. He went full tilt into that energy and created some of the world's greatest art. But what we tend to do is like, well, that scares the crap out of me, so I'm just going to go full bore the other way. And I'm going to go like get secure, fit in, because if I start to put my toe in that water, the next thing you know, I'm going to be, you know, off in Tahiti. And he also died of a terrible disease. So it's like, you know, life is going to fall apart, you know. But I've got to tell you, most of history is not going to remember any one of us, right? But most of history is going to remember Paul Gauguin for a long time. So, I mean, my point is that there are, and I've talked about, this is a whole nother discussion, which we don't need to get into right now, about we actually can afford to take risks, because we are going to be gone soon and no one is going to remember us, you know? So, you know, why not move in the direction of our full manifestation, even if it doesn't fit in with everybody's idea of who they think we should be, right? And so this is sort of just an exploration of the journey. And I really, I want to encourage each of you to participate in it, in whatever level it seems right for you. So you could kind of just listen and feel and notice how it feels for you, or you can get the book and read along and dive in and contribute. I think we all could have something to gain from going into these aspects of ourselves that are a little hidden, that are a little repressed, that we don't tend to explore, that we kind of push aside and say, well, I'll get to that later, or, you know, maybe I'll get to that never, you know. And so this is just an opportunity to work with this aspect of ourselves. I mean, ultimately, we take this lower chakra energy, and we transmute it with the heart center, and we bring down the energy of wisdom and a sense of connected. And so ultimately, we just feel more integrated and more whole, and to know that we can be that way with each other. That's the other thing that's really quite motivating for me is, wow, wouldn't it, one of the things I think that an experience of the divine is when we feel naked, when we feel witness. So you use that word naked, and I like that word quite a bit, because it's naked in and of itself is not erotic or sexual. It's just exposed. I am vulnerable. Here I am, right? And there's a deep part of us that wants to be acknowledged naked, wants to be like, you are okay, warts and all, you know, and you are loved, you are worthy of being held, right? Most of us, again, are covering up or proving ourselves worthy in some way, shape, or form all the time. We're constantly doing this, and it's freaking exhausting. And wouldn't it be nice if we could just be here and be ourselves with our idiosyncrasies, and feel like that's okay. That's okay. It's neither great. It doesn't have to be great or lovely or beautiful. It's okay, right? We don't have to aggrandize it either, but we don't have to vilify it at all. We don't have to shame it at all, right? Most of us are really suffering from shame that was given to us, as Clarice was saying, you know, because if you're not fitting in some way, you're defective. And if you're defective, you're supposed to feel bad about it. So, you know, and so if we could actually be here, metaphorically naked, right? You know, then wow, what a relief that is. Oh my God, you know, like, and I think that that's where these two paths can meet. This path of the kind of spiritual, and how do I use the tools that I've been working on for years now, or for maybe just months now, you know, and combine it with what are some of the deeper attachments, desires, longings that I've been repressing forever, right? And playing out some of the even the generational stuff that Clarice was talking about. Most of these things have been passed along to us over many beyond our lifetime, for sure. And this is a chance, in many ways, to do that unpacking and to do that healing, to break some of those Gordian knots, to break some of those karmic seeds, to replant, to plant new seeds of karma. So we're no longer just repeating the same patterns. You ever notice how we tend to get into the same patterns, the same arguments, the same, you know, we have some issue come up in one relationship and we stop that relationship and it just comes up in the next relationship. That's because we haven't changed the karmic patterns. We haven't changed the way we react to those deeper wounds. If we can unearth those things and start to release them and start to just let them go, or soften our attachment to them, or soften our need to hide them, then all of a sudden we start seeing and choosing differently. We start seeing and choosing differently. We start to feel more free. We start to feel more available. We start to have more intimacy, because we're having more intimacy with ourselves. And then we have that moment with others as well, where we're available to the other person, because we don't have this agenda of like our own neediness. And this is so it's pretty deep work. And so any case, and you can, when I say work, it's to whatever level you want to participate, but the key is kind of to show up. It's like showing up on your mat, right? You can show up on your yoga mat, and you can actually just sit there and take in the energy of the experience of the room. Or you can really try to do all the practices. You can do all the breath work. You can do the mantras. You can do, you know, all the poses, you know, and so it's like, okay, let me just stay engaged at whatever level I'm ready for today, right? And that's the practice. There's one yoga teacher was asked, what's the most difficult posture? And he answered, standing at the front of your mat, you know. And I thought that was, you know, what he meant is showing up is the most difficult posture. But you have to want to show up, and that's why we're having this conversation today. And I welcome your feedback. As do you want to show up? Because if you don't want to show up, then we should do something else. But it sounds like, at least for most of you, you want to show up, and we'll do the best. We'll just go on the journey as best, and we'll see where it takes us. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. So it's 1 o'clock right now. So let's just finish up with a little bit of meditation, and then we'll spend more time. I'll add some longer meditations into the practice as well, and so we're not spending quite as much time chatting about things. But it's important to kind of set the ground rules or the basis of what we're going to be doing for this time. So just come back into your seated pose for a moment. Feeling the sit bones into the ground, feel the crown up towards the sky. Begin to breathe deeply through your nose into your belly. Letting the belly rise away from the spine on the inhale breath. Letting the belly fall back down towards the spine on the exhale. Inhale, belly rising. Exhale, belly falling. Soften the shoulders. Lengthen the spine. Inhale down the front. Exhale up the back. Inhale down the front. Exhale up the back. And turn the palms to face up. Bring your right hand onto your heart center. Breathing in and out of the heart center. Feeling the chest rising and falling. And bring your left hand into Gyan Mudra, index finger to your thumb. And feeling the chest rising and falling. And feeling yourself blessing your own heart, sending healing, loving energy through your right hand into your heart. Moment of self-love, of self-compassion. A moment of knowing this is okay and everything is okay. And breathing deeply in and out through the heart center. We're just going to do a little mantra here before we go. We're going to do Sa, index finger to thumb. Ta, middle index finger to thumb. Na, ring finger to thumb. Ma, pinky finger to thumb. So it's Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Just a couple minutes of this. Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Hand on the knee. Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. 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 Sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma. Inhale. Hold the breath. Root lock, chin lock, pull up. Exhale, release. Bringing the palms together. Take another deep inhale. Exhale with a sigh. Inhale. All that is sacred and divine in me bows to you and honors all that is sacred and divine in you. Namaste. Namaste, everyone.